We'll get started. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Connect and Extends session. So we're going to look at powering innovation with the use of the Schoolbox APIs. I'm Scott Newman. I am one of the product owners here at Schoolbox. Joining us in a bit of a hybrid panel session today, I've got Miles you'd be familiar with, the professional tinkerer. Craig Murray and James Dodd from Arden Anglican School, and of course James Leckie to talk our Schoolbox APIs particularly. So looking forward to getting some insights into how some of our schools are using our API functionality for their specific purposes. But overall, what we're really looking to get out of today is to understand what Schoolbox APIs are and why they matter. We want to look at particular examples of how we are using our own APIs and some of our partners are using our APIs. We also want to leverage some of the skills, expertise and experiences of our own schools to provide you with a little bit of inspiration on specific use cases within schools that can be adapted and applied using our APIs. And at the end, we'll sort of reflect and also look to the future and what the possibilities are with using APIs, and also offer the opportunity for some Q&A to these specific people sitting on the stage here. So that's why they're all out the front. I'll move on through. To start the session, I'm actually going to hand over to James to give you a real oversight into the Schoolbox infrastructure from an API perspective. So thank you, James.
All right, so I guess from our perspective, we wanted to provide API. Schoolbox as a platform is a data store, obviously, and we capture and hold a huge amount of data within the platform, and that data spreads across assessment, pastoral, user data, enrollment in different areas of the school, calendars. There's a whole range of different areas that our data spreads across. And so today, I guess we're going to look at how do you access that data? How do you then leverage that data, and what you could do with access to that data? So for us, there's obviously always within schools extra things that you want to do that go beyond the Schoolbox platform, and there's also workflows that are specific to the way you do things that are relevant to your specific policies, and sometimes you just want to create a faster way to do things that are simpler, easier experience for your users, that perhaps maybe in the Schoolbox way it's more complicated because we have to support more use cases. Sometimes we see those things simplified because there's an easy way to do it within your context. Just to give a quick overview, and I'm going to move really fast through these slides because we now have like over 50 slides in this deck, and I don't know how we're going to get through it all in an hour, so I'm going to try and move really quickly. So there's going to be a lot of text, but hopefully you can get access to these slides after if you want. But just quickly, we have a range of areas that are accessible via our APIs. Obviously, user management, I mentioned earlier. We have learning. That's all of your ability to create learning moments, do work, and submissions. We have a full assessment API that gets all of the assessment result data, and it can be filtered and cut up in different ways. So you can get by class, you can get by cohort, things like that, course. So you can actually access a lot of that data. From the learning system, we have calendar APIs. We have both JSON and VCal calendar APIs as well, so there's different formats for calendars. We have communication. One thing that comes up a lot, through the communication, we have the ability to send notifications through our delivery system, which is an interesting use case. If you have a workflow or an action, you want to send a message, you can actually use the Schoolbox delivery system to deliver that message. And of course, the pastoral care and some of the administrative functions within the system. So just quickly, with our APIs, we have obviously our Premier Partner Program, and they make great use of our APIs already, and often we're extending and enhancing those APIs for these providers as part of that relationship that we build with those providers. So obviously that listing up there, we have Paperly, IntelliSchool, Clipboard, and Digistorm. up there. Digistorm is probably the most heavily integrated. It uses a lot of our APIs to access the data that it puts within that native app experience. Just some more beyond the Premier Partner Program. So beyond the Premier Partner Program, there's a whole ecosystem of products out there that have been developed around our APIs already. Accelerus has the ability to take all of our assessment data and put it into their reporting package. Track One does something similar and actually pushes the data into TAS. So Track One provides the ability for write back of assessment data into TAS for TAS reporting. In Class is a mobile application similar to Digistorm that enables, once again, Schoolbox functionality in a native mobile experience. And then finally, we've got Microsoft Teams integration. I just announced that on LinkedIn recently. They've now announced that as public preview, I believe, in their August release notes. So that should now be available to schools to sort of start to tinker with. But that allows you to hook Teams and Teams assignments and other features like OneNote, I think, and Reflect as well are all available through that integration. And that's utilizing LTI for those that are wondering. I should mention LTI in general. LTI has huge amounts of use cases. It can be used for sort of 3 different places within Schoolbox. The 2 main ones are embedding on a homepage, and the other one is embedding as a learning activity within the platform. And when you embed a LTI as a learning activity, it comes through as into the gradebook. Continuing on about LTI, we have 2 ways to do authentication within Schoolbox. And LTI, obviously, one of the things that it does is provide authentication into a third-party tool. So this is just a quick sort of difference between 2 of our different APIs for doing authentication. One is the Remote Services API. And if you're building something in-house and you just want something simple and quick, and you just want to hack like a dashboard or a widget into a page and embed it in an iframe, and you want some form of authentication passed through there, the Remote Services API is a really great way to sort of get something up and running really quickly. LTI 1.3 also can do authentication, but it is a much more complicated full OAuth system, so it's a more advanced way of doing authentication. But with LTI, you get a lot more context information. So you get things like, the email and full name and course context and a whole range of other things that can help with launching an LTI activity that may be necessary in some cases. But just wanted to sort of explain the 2 differences there. I often point schools towards the Remote Services API first, and then if that doesn't work, try the LTI, just in terms of technical complexity. All right, next up, we're moving through this pretty quickly, which is good, because these guys are going to spend a lot of time, I hope, showing us some examples. But first up, I wanted to invite Peter Carpenter from Wand up. In our environment, we obviously have to interact with a lot of third-party systems, and part of interacting with all those third-party systems is making sure that we're all aligned and talking about the same user data, the same user objects. And Wand is a great way to connect a lot of different tools together and provide a whole lot of services. I'll let Peter talk a bit about what Wand can provide.
Thanks, James. I've only got one slide, everyone, so don't worry, I'm not really here for too long clicking through. But yeah, as James said, Wand's a data integration layer, so we connect to about 25 different student information systems across Australia and New Zealand, and provide a secure connection method to about 600 different third-party vendors. So I think 3/4 of the schools here, the conference use Wand in some capacity. It might just be for a library system, could be for a maths app, timetabling, hundreds of different third-party products that you guys control from your own Wand portal to simplify that method. And I think a lot of the synergetic schools we've spoken to in the last couple of days, everyone's seemingly trying to simplify the custom scripts that have been built over the years, and so you can do all that via the Wand, very simplified Wand portal. In terms of our partnership with Schoolbox, we've been working with the last couple of years with James and the team. As James mentioned, very much centres around simplifying integration. Obviously, the partnership centres around building that integrated ecosystem that James has touched on with Schoolbox's APIs. Wand obviously works with Schoolbox as an integration layer, but obviously in terms of the LTI component and all the broader methods that Schoolbox provides to the teaching and learning products, we leave all that tough stuff up to you guys to deal with. We work with more the SIS as a source of truth. In terms of wands, yeah, for many of the schools do use wand, we've enhanced what we do over the years. We work, as I said, in about 30-odd thousand schools, but also in Oz, we've introduced a premium side of what we do, so basically paid for. Currently it's free, so you guys manage all your apps as a free portal within Wand, but for independent schools especially, we've built a premium layer which essentially gives you access to see what's going on inside Wand rather than it being a black box. So we've provided an API Explorer type tool so you can see everything to do with all the students and data that's flowing through into your third parties. And then also, on top of that, really give pieces around compliance, so really understanding where your data that you are sharing, which students, what fields are going to what third-party vendors, doing it all via a simple UI, again, rather than those custom scripts that have been there for some time. And but yeah, range of other updates. This is back to Schoolbox and you guys rather than Wand, so come out and say hi if you have a chance later this afternoon. Cheers.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, and just to reiterate, Peter and the Wand standards out in the vendors area, so please stop in, say hello, ask any questions you may have. Right. So when we first started putting this presentation together, we sort of internally discussed what we wanted to get out of this. We understood that many of you in the room will have, or you all have varying experiences and backgrounds and sort of knowledge starting points in this space. So as our schools present in a moment, I want you to have a lens on about the idea and the workflow that these examples demonstrate. And then start to think about how the APIs could help you in your own context. So yeah, the two schools presenting today, Knox Grammar and Arden Anglican School, have taken different approaches, but both along the similar lines of trying to improve workflows and the experiences for not only their staff, but their students as well. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce again the Tinkerer, Miles, up to present on what Knox have been working on. So,
we'll see how we go. Yeah, let's dive into my. So a little bit about Knox. I'm just coming up into this year. I'll be 3 years at Knox. We're quite a large school, so in the senior school in our school we have 400 students in a year group, so really big. We're a boys' school and a little over 100 years old. Really interesting place in that we're very conservative educationally. We have been really high achieving academically, though not selective, and so lots of pressure there. We at the last of these meetups. I think we'd signed about 7 days prior to the start of the meetup to go Schoolbox in our first structured LMS at Knox. So we were running the school like that without an LMS at all. Might be surprising to you, it was to me. But that's, that's context. So yeah, made a decision 2024, and we've been rolling out this year. The setting is perhaps not unexpected in that, a big school, and I think we do a cracking job of looking after boys and maintaining a fantastic workplace, but lots and lots of fragmented processes, lots of things to link together, and we're trying to use our move to Schoolbox, or Knoxy, as we call it. It's the sort of the war cry that our boys yell out from the hill when football or rugby are being played. That's our tagline on the project was it's one place to go to start ... Right? One place to go, and that has resonated on the whole. It's now up to us to actually make sure that it is one place. Some interesting questions, I think, this is very much the driver for us as we're doing this. And as I say, we're right back at the starting point on our journey. is this interesting question of who, in the age of AI and where we find ourselves today with APIs and a lot more openness, who gets to develop things in your school? Like who, and really how many things is it feasible to develop? And I think there's this fascinating tension right now around vibe coding, right? So what does it look like to grab one of these tools, spin up something and make it work? And I don't know if you've done that in one or other tool. It's really easy to make something that looks great and purports to do something really interesting, but it raises questions like the middle circle there. How do we make sure that that's actually safe? And the other one, how do we make sure that's actually something supportable? It's not hard to start a thing, but if we're going to have lots of people building tools, what does that look like 3 years, 5 years? I've done this a long time. I've been there through successive waves of kind of low code or no code sorts of things, and it's easy to get yourself in a mess. So internally, we build some things. We have an integration platform as a service as well. Some of the things that we've been doing, some of our experiments so far, a big one's about calendars. I don't know what you do with calendars in your school, but we have a workflow that starts with a system called Trumba. Don't absolutely love it, but it's got a nice process for people being able to request events to get them in our calendar. So we're flat out at the moment of people saying, I want to run this in week 3 of term 2. Is that doable? And we put that in with some attributes, and a team looks at that and sees whether that's feasible. When we're happy with all of that, it automatically then has to sync through into Schoolbox. And so the things that we're asking there are, what campus is it? Who are the groups that are going to be involved? The year groups, the various things. And one of my colleagues here, Nathan, maintains using Wakato, our integration platform as a service, to pull all that data through and align it and push it into the relevant groups. So it's being tagged to the groups using that recently created calendar API. Another really big one was around timetables and how do we get that into an individual teacher's calendar. I've done that a bunch of times, but it's usually looked like either a teacher did it themselves and they put the ICS, the calendar feed in, and it's convenient for them. But if I then, if James does that in his calendar, I now look up his calendar to see whether he's free and he's teaching a bunch of classes. What does it look like when I see his calendar? It looks empty because it's just added it in his calendar. So we just recently built a little tool that instead fetches that per employee, just in piloting at the moment, and then it calls the Microsoft Graph API and it actually it creates a new calendar, Noxie calendar, and another one for Noxie timetable if you've got a timetable feed. Just creates those attributes, pushes it into their calendar, and then keeps that synchronized for them. And so it's just in there. And for the timetable one, it sets their free busy information to busy, and for the other one, it keeps it free because it's all this campus stuff. If we set that to busy, you would never have any spots available in your calendar. We're just moving pastoral care out of our SIS and experimenting actually with how can we get that feasibly into Noxie, into Schoolbox. We have a whole lot of analytics and event-driven notifications and things that exist off our current system using Microsoft Fabric. So at the moment, not necessarily an API thing, but very, very much an integration thing. We couldn't hit the API hard enough to be able to give us the kind of timeliness that we need there. So we're making database queries across into the that read-only access that we can get to the Schoolbox cloud there to go and pull all of that, like harvest it all in and act on that. Another interesting one, and some screenshots. You'll even see from the colour. You might recognise a fairly common colour scheme that happens when you do AI development with our friend Claude. Often stuff looks a little bit like that. And it's a really awesome prototype where we had, again, around this experiment with pastoral care, we've got staff members that are out and about, particularly as the boys arrive to school, and they want to be able to record just tiny little PC entries, pastoral care entries, of a boy being out of uniform. Seems like the most inane thing in the world, the simplest thing in the world, but where and how would they do that? stand on our gate and just in the senior school, the main gate will have about 1,800 people come through it in 20 minutes, 1,800 boys come through it in 20 minutes just from one of the gates. How on earth are they going to manage that? The prototype enables them to just quickly click a thing, start typing 2 letters, find the boy, hit the infraction, and then it posts it straight into the system. Again, it's not mind-blowing, but what a massive time saver for those teams. It doesn't penalise the teacher who's been there on the gate isn't now punished by having to go back and spend 15 minutes going and doing all of that, or in what would be today TAS, be a nightmare. The API just simplifies that workflow tremendously. It's a little bit of a screenshot of what it's like when we set up the sync of the Schoolbox sync, and we've made it so that you can grab any feed. So I've got one you can grab a Formula 1 feed and do it and put it in so you get the Formula 1 calendar. But if it's using Schoolbox, we automatically hit the API, get the token for you individually, so that we can generate the unique URL that you use for that each individual has for their URL. Generate that and fetch that, and then no one has to know anything. They just turn it on and say, yep, I want to start syncing the calendar. And that's back to that one. So the other one, like a big one at the moment, is lots and lots of experiments with embedding. So working particularly with the Remote Services API, looking at how can we take various either tools that we build or tools from around our ecosystem that a teacher might use, and how can we bring them in? How can Noxie for us be one place to go for really everything, or as many things in a given context as we can? So that took the form of, say, a little headless app, a little app that we've got with no Chrome. We take a clipboard fixtures and clipboard results, and so being able to embed and have some parameters there, so that if we embed it in the main sport page, you could search any of the sport for that campus. If we embed it in the football page, it's already filtered to the fixtures for football. Also, ongoing experiments with Power BI embedded. If you've ever delved into that world, I do feel your pain. It's not super fun, but yeah, Knox Insights is for us Microsoft Fabric with Power BI, and we really want to IntelliSchool bring those insights up both at a class level and nudge nudge at an individual student level as well, so that if you're looking up a student there, you could see all of their insights there as well. We've got some tiny little apps that we have been building also around just little things like house points and house fundraising. How do we take those things and just embed them automatically into class pages? And that's coming along. So wrapping up, where do we want to go? We've got a lot of work coming up around. We're really excited about the course markbook improvements. All of the major assessment stuff we do is at a course level. And again, being quite large, we have say 16 Year 7 English classes. Things can't be managed in individual class markbooks. They have to be able to be managed with all 395 students on one thing, and they're often marked across a grade. We want to really simplify a lot of the workflows around that. If we've had something like a handwritten task and we've got 395 PDFs ready to go, how can we ingest that and create that submission on behalf of the student and manage all of that? We're really interested in what comes next then in terms of particularly say MCP. If you don't know about MCP, wonderful exercise to go and do a little bit of learning around probably that next level with AI, and how we would love to be able to, from external systems, talk to Schoolbox and say, tell me about some things that are happening in Schoolbox, tell me about the data that's in there, but also go and operate on it. So maybe over here I've got the syllabus outline. I now want you to go and look at my course, interrogate it, tell me about where the gaps are. Okay, now go and build some things for me, and really be able to do that ideally from inside of Schoolbox as well. But I know that's another topic. But it's where APIs get really interesting, I think, as soon as we start talking about AI, because the ability for different systems to access each other's data just goes nuts. It's just 10 times, 100 times more powerful when we can leverage AI to work with that data. It's more context. We don't have to worry about which system am I in if we can bring that all together. So that's things that we're really excited about. Happy to chat over lunch as well on some more, but I really want to see what these guys have done, because seen a little bit many years ago, and I think it's going to be exciting. So, do you want me to? I'll go back to you, Scott. Here we go.
Thank you very much, Miles. Yeah, when Miles and I were speaking, I just love that idea of starting with that problem. Was it seems like the 1,800 kids walking into the room, but into the school, sorry, but that solution that was whipped up, and just that in this day, and obviously we had the AI session this morning, but just thinking about what's possible now, and does that accelerate us to, if it's outside of our skill set slightly, at least being able to present a concept and an idea and accelerate the thinking, and is asking this question, would this work, and then working out how to go about implementing it. So yeah, thank you, Miles. All right, so now we'll hand over to Craig Murray from Arden Anglican School, who's going to share some experiences in their use cases. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Hello, everyone. So, Arden Anglican School, we're not quite as big as Knox, 1,100 students, K to 12. The junior school's been around for over 100 years, but the secondary school's quite new. We started using pastoral care, and I've got a lot of slides to go through, so I'll go through really quickly. We started using pastoral care almost immediately. Then we decided that the best use of this for us was also around behavioural. So funny that you're using it for uniform infringements, Miles, because we are also doing a similar thing. We had the old diary system with commendations and demerits. I think most people did. My son was at the school, and his favourite trick of all was to give the teacher the erasable pen when he was getting a demerit and run out in the hallway and rub it out. So needless to say, this is why we built this behavioural management system inside the pastoral care system, and the APIs make that work smoothly and efficiently. We decided we'd put some stats in here. So we've been running this for 2 years, just in the secondary school. 53,000 records into the pastoral care system just out of behaviour. Sorry? Naughty kids. 45,000 is for good behaviour, James, so it's okay. But what we did during that phase is we would try to, so 3 demerits equal to lunchtime detention, and then if you got 6 more demerits after that, you went to a level 1 discipline card, and then a level 2 and a level 3. So we had to figure out how we're going to use the APIs, and we use a product called Laserfish for our workflows and forms. So we were taking it out into our warehouse, doing some calculations, and then passing it off. So it kind of looks like this. We didn't build an app. We just used CCS to change some buttons up the top to go straight to accommodation or straight to a demerit. Sets all the subtypes, and the teachers just put in a reason of why they're in trouble. This is what the student profile looks like now with the use of pastoral care. You'll see the red obviously is the demerits, green is commendations, the red is a timeout card for those students that need to go down to student services and have 5 minutes to take a breath. We also have learning support profiles up there, and the purple one is counsellor records, which took us about 18 months to get the counsellors to actually agree that they were going to put their records in there. So this is just stepping through the process of putting a demerit in. Teachers do this. It's quite simple. They're just putting in a reason, pressing go. Notification goes out to parents to say, little Johnny's been naughty today, be aware. Once it moves out to the next level of behaviour, this form is presented to our year coordinators to say, little Johnny's reached 3 demerits and he's going to get a referral. Being a pastoral school though, we had to put some safeguards in place to say, well, and the year coordinators were like, well, you don't understand the child. It can't be just 3 and they get a demerit. So they wanted mechanisms in place to say, we know that little Johnny's having a hard time at home because mum and dad have just recently separated, or little Johnny's granddad just died and he's naughty behaviour. So this form is presented to the year coordinator and they can put an adjustment in here. So they can adjust 1 or 2 points, put in a reason for the adjustment so that we're tracking why we're making these adjustments. But if they come in here and they approve this, it automatically inserts the referral record back into Schoolbox pastoral care system. James made me put this up here. I'm hoping he doesn't want me to explain it though. It was just an example of the API calls that are being made to make the referral record go into the system. This is another one. So this is actually the workflow in Laserfish that picks up the 3 coming in, whether it was approved, whether there was an adjustment, all those things are going on in the background. And then it inserts the referral record directly back into the pastoral care system. And what that enables us to do is to track with Power BI dashboards the amount of demerits that are coming through, referrals of each student, anybody that's been on suspension or anything like that. The left-hand side is all about merits, and how many they've been awarded, where they're at with their cycle. And the right-hand side just obviously tells you what's next for this naughty child. But what we're finding when teachers are doing, especially year coordinators and mentors are doing their reporting, they pull up this behaviour dashboard, they pull up their merit dashboard, which shows all their co-curricular activities, and they can get a good insight into what that student's involvement in the school is while they're writing their comments. I think that's me done. I'm going to hand over to James Dodd. So I'm the director of ICT. I come up with the wacky ideas, and James is the brains that puts it together and makes it work. There you go, mate.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Craig. That's very kind. All right. So one of the other use cases that we have is also around news. And I actually got some stats up there as well because that's quite interesting. This is since the beginning of time, since we've used Schoolbox, so when we started in 2014. But we, about 3 or 4 years ago, started delivering news posts via the API as well. And you'll see that like over half of our news posts now are actually via the API. But there is a reason for that. We deliver a lot of news on an individual basis. But the 2 main ways that we use news, generally speaking, are at the moment through our e-consent and our absentee notifications as well. So just picking on absentee for a second, this is all, Craig mentioned Laserfish as a forms kind of workflow environment that we use for a lot of this. And so we have both of these are actually forms, technically speaking, they're just very customized. And so we have a Face ID terminal, uses the Azure Face API as well. Students come up to the terminal in the morning when they're late, or that's essentially their spot to come to student services if they don't turn up to school on time. And the absentee form is on the other side of that, inside the DigiStorm app. That's what the parent will actually submit to say that their child isn't going to be there for that day. And kind of the output of some of that is that we wanted to be able to deliver news posts via the already existing great news platform that we had, but on an individual basis back to the parent. If their child, say, didn't turn up and they were late that day, we want to inform the parent straight via news, via a push notification straight to their phone. So that's one of the ways that we're using it. To do that, we kind of went down a bit of a news notification kind of workflow redesign in a way to try and make this process a little bit more reusable, essentially, so that we could kind of use it across multiple different areas of our system and not just specifically absentee. So we have a data warehouse, and we're essentially writing back all of these news posts from our other systems into that area, and then we essentially run this on either a scheduled basis or when triggered, and we can push a news notification out to either Schoolbox. It could also be an email or a SMS as well. We have an SMS integration as well. So that just helps us streamline and simplify the whole process, and allows us to very quickly push data straight into either email, SMS, or the news post system in Schoolbox very quickly, and rebuild and reuse that integration. Again, I guess we're talking about APIs, so we thought we'd put a quick example up. Just quickly shows you what the API call looks like. This is just a Postman example. As you can see there, the audience for a lot of our news posts is the individual that we're actually sending the news post to. So in our workflow engine, it essentially, when you insert the data, you tell it what kind of audience segmenting you want, and it will automatically figure out who the parents of that child are, do the base 64 conversions, and deal with all of that for you, and then make the request. And then that's just the workflow example as well. Cool. So then the output of that, which is the more fun part, is that you end up with a result that kind of looks similar to some of these examples here. So the example over there, Marcus has been signed in late today. That's an example of a news notification that was triggered to the parent. And we include inside that a dynamic link that will take the parent directly to the already pre-filled out absentee form for their individual child. So it's all kind of very quick and easy for the parent to access. The same kind of thing we do with e-consents as well, which is just our consent, what we call, it's essentially just our electronic consent system. And so if the parent hasn't, say, signed the consent form, 2 days prior to that, system will run, check who hasn't signed it, who's supposed to have signed it, send out a push notification via news, and it'll look like the bottom one there as well. Again, a dynamic button is inserted into that, and then they can just select it from there, fill out the form, and they're done. Yeah. I threw this in very much last minute because our principal was like, oh, I want to kind of get an understanding of how much news is going through the system. So we kind of, this is not even production at all. This is kind of let's throw something together very quickly. But we just wanted to get a bit of an understanding of where news was coming from, what department it was coming from. Is it being delivered in the morning, in the afternoon? What days have the highest level of news traffic coming through the system? You can see there's a massive spike in news there in 2020-ish, which is around the launch of this system, which makes sense. And you can kind of just slice and dice this kind of however you want, essentially, to look at different audience sizes and where that audience is coming from and who is being delivered to. All right, so some other things that we also do with the API as well. So we manage NCCD records through the pastoral care system as well. So again, this example here as well is actually the NCCD form. So part of the reason for doing this was to try and collate essentially together our NCCD records. So the main objective there was to make it easy for a teacher to be able to open up a form, figure out what those NCCD adjustments are for that term, and be able to quickly, in a single pane of glass, get all of the kids that need an adjustment and be able to evidence that adjustment quickly without having to make individual records for every single child. So we've got a form that kind of does that, and then that writes back into the warehouse, and it just collates and updates that record on a regular basis, and then pulls it all together. So then the output of that is that you just have a single record for every NCCD adjustment per child. We also use do it for Illness Assist Venture as well, so we record that via the API in Pastoral as well. We trigger the UPS via the API to and we do badging as well via the API. So I'm not going to go into too much detail right now about all of those, but we do also deliver awards through there as well into the Schoolbox to create badges too. Few things, few risks and things to think about, I guess, on this slide. This is something that I guess is very easy as IT guys to kind of get yourself into this problem of constantly building things that you then have to maintain. So I think the biggest risk, as I was thinking about what we should add for this slide, was essentially how do we, every time we go and build something and build a new integration, how do we ensure that we're actually building something that doesn't already exist, I guess, and there's not already a product that exists that can do it, and also how are we actually going to maintain that. And a lot of the time, I know that I'm probably an example of this, and so is much a lot of other people in this room probably. You kind of want to come in and fix the problem. You know how you can solve it, but it sometimes doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily the right way to do it. And then you have to maintain that year on year. So that's one thing I think that we try to build things that are reusable and as much as we can, and not just create something for the sake of creating something, I guess. Some other things in there as well, just ensuring that your permissions and things, particularly for pastoral care visibility, is accurate and correct. Ensuring that you're testing things on your dev environment. That's why you have a staging environment. Do all of that first. I love to have a go at James about the fourth point about the fact that there's no patch endpoint yet in pastoral care, because we do a lot of work in pastoral care, but I have heard that might be coming, which will make updating our pastoral care records a lot easier. And just some future direction things that we want to look at. We're starting to roll out some of this behavior stuff with our junior campus now as well. So we want to have some deeper integrations with pastoral through that and through other things that we're working on. We want to increase the uses of badges and learning moments across the system. We also want to start building out some more curriculum mapping. That's going to take some time to do, but it'll allow us to be able to, if we can map all of our tasks, our quizzes, everything back to the curriculum, which you can now do inside Schoolbox, it'll allow us to then be able to build things like study materials, quizzes, and we have played around with examples where we'll generate a quiz using AI that's in the Schoolbox quiz format. That automatically injects that back into Schoolbox, generates the quiz, all based upon whether a student's doing particularly well in, we'll target areas of the curriculum that they're not doing well in, build a quiz around that, and then generate that in Schoolbox. And then, of course, the other one that we want to look at more is around academic dashboards as well, which I'm sure lots of people in this room are looking at as well. I think that's probably everything I've got for now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, James. When James and Craig showed me what they were doing, the news post particularly targeted to the individual just really resonated with me. From being a year level coordinator and chasing up those individual absentees to try and get reasoning from the parents when it just wasn't there, and that's the time saver from that. I'm sure that the staff really appreciate that workflow. Saves that follow up. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. I'll sort of wander with the mic. Any questions for the panelists up here? Donnie might get the mic roving. Leave this one up here for you guys.
While you're getting the mic organised, I'd just like to add, just in terms of API use and general, as a hacker myself and a tinkerer myself, I think the philosophy at Schoolbox is very much This is a system that you can make your own, and we want to encourage people to make it their own. We really do appreciate and love seeing these examples where things have been taken further than we could ever imagine. For us, it takes a lot of pressure off us having to deal with every minute edge case and scenario. So it is an important investment for us to make sure that the product is adaptable and can be configured and customized for your specific needs. So we do value investing in APIs, and we encourage everyone to make use of them as much as possible. So yeah, do we have a mic up yet? Could we grab some questions?
Hi, just to give you context about where I'm from, I'm working in a school that's based in Beijing. So we have a lot of strict rules over there, including not being able to use certain servers that are outside of China because China wants student data and all that to stored within China. That's my just to give you context on my question. I'm quite curious because you mentioned a few APIs and a lot of integration into Schoolbox, and I'm curious how you ensure safeguarding, and because by integrating all these APIs, you also give access to. I assume they also have access. These companies have access to what's inside Schoolbox. So the students' information, et cetera, et cetera. How do you ensure that their information is safely stored and doesn't leak, I guess?
Yes,
That's
good
my
question. 'Cause
question.
I think you're all using some form of data lake or something under the hood. So do you want to talk about like how you sort of selected those data lakes and what they look like and what you put in there and how you manage the data in those data lakes?
So yeah, so
You
we're
made James's day by
No,
asking this question.
no. Yeah, so we're a 365 Azure school. We have about 95% of our workloads inside Azure. We have a Azure data warehouse that sits up in the cloud, but it is inside our tenant. And we essentially use Data Factory pipelines that move our data from all of our different source systems, Schoolbox, Synergetic, Clipboard, and others, on a regular basis. Some schemas we sync more regularly than others, but essentially that goes up into there, which is still all inside our control. And then from there, we then leverage another system called Workflow, which does a lot of the API, like that allows us to run the web-based side of the remote services API to do a lot of those calls, but that's also sitting inside our tenant too, and then that's making calls to Schoolbox, which again also sits inside our Azure tenant as well. That's kind of the rough setup that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even building on that a little, our data stack for that side of things, the analytics side is quite similar, like it's all Microsoft stuff. But I think maybe even part of that question too, I think whenever we're integrating systems, we have to be really clear about whether they're our own things, so a tool that's built internally, or we're connecting a third-party tool, identifying the principles that we want to apply there, and then ensuring that the integration that we put in place is able to properly honour and reflect that. And that's both saying, well, look, if I've got a system over here that needs to be able to do pastoral care entries, I don't want to give it God level access in my Schoolbox instance, it's a sort of zero trust mindset, or principle of least privilege being applied to the access control there, and saying, well, ideally here, this account is going to do something that has the ability to do this specific thing, and I'm very intentional about that. And I think it's easy to not do that, particularly when you're building your own tools. It's so much easier to just overdo the permissions on something, but our mindset ideally, and certainly what we try and do, is assuming that those credentials get compromised. How can I limit the blast radius? How do I make sure that that's quite small? And I would say trying to do that even having even more of an eye to that if it's not you and some code written at your school by one of your, if you happen to be blessed with internal software engineers or integrators, when you're giving it to a third party. So I'm going to, here's a tool that outside is going to be able to do something, either being able to be really specific about the permissions you're giving it, because I think built into that question, I think there's a lot of trust involved, right? And I think then it's even more the case if what you're plugging in is really general purpose. So, it's why you want to have great conversations with folks like Peter at Wand, or with the IntelliSchool folks, who are going to be given, like, by the nature of the tool, they're pretty much going to have God level access to the thing, because you want them, they're going to, when they need to, they want to talk pastoral care data. Now they're going to talk student data now. And it's not to say you shouldn't do that. There's plenty of reasons to do that, and to have one trusted partner that you has really rigorous approaches around that. But I think we need to make sure we're being really mindful. It's like we're giving a set of like an admin login to someone, right? Doesn't matter who, right? Because it is, and in Schoolbox's case, it is actually tied to the individual whose stuff you're putting in. So I think trying to get that as close as you can. I think there's another kind of nuanced thing maybe to touch on, and that is when we're pulling data out, making sure somehow, I reckon this is one of the hardest things, is that the authorization, so you have authentication, so are you logged in basically, like are you who you say you are, but then the authorization question is about like what kind of permissions you've got and all of those things. How you take that logic and those rules from system A, where you sourced this data from, and ensure that they're being honoured in system B, right? So like I think Craig's example earlier of like being able to take the psych notes and do things with them. There's few more tense conversations in a school than about like psychologist notes and who has access to those. And it's so easy to go, we're going to pull that from our system, pull that down into the data lake, and down in the data lake, everyone's got, the whole technology team's got access to them. And so working out how, if I'm going to take all this data outside of the system where we went to great lengths to create roles and really finesse what they look like, if I'm going to go and take that and put it somewhere else, can I honour and respect that, or have I just introduced a real privacy or security problem? Really hard. There's no easy answer.
And I should say that JWT scopes are on our roadmap as well. So for those that don't understand what those are, so when you create a JWT token in Schoolbox at the moment, it's created with the privileges of that user. But one of the things that we know that a lot of people want to do is be able to then restrict down the access of that token, so that it can only access perhaps a subsystem or read-only or whatever it might be. So they're on our roadmap, and we've already sort of scoped that out and starting to work on that as well, to sort of enhance those levels of permissions. When you're creating those API access points, you can then really target down what you want to provide to that third party when they do connect into your APIs. Next question.
Thank you. Any other questions? There we are.
Making you run.
I suppose I'll take one for the team here. For those of us that are at quite small schools, sitting here just really blown away with what's able to be achieved. Is it one of those things that, if you have to ask, you can't handle it, don't worry about doing APIs. We don't have a team of software engineers. We're just a very small subset of, dedicated IT people wearing many different hats. Or is this the kind of thing that's really trying to be opened up, and you're encouraging us to explore API and look at ways to do things? Curious to get your thoughts on that.
It's a good question. So I think there's three parts to this. So firstly, if you're so small and you don't have the developers or things like that on staff, you're looking at our partners and looking at, they've already got developers and they've already built integrations into these APIs. So it's not just about whether you can build it in-house. I mean, these guys have built it in-house, but there's also products on the market that integrate with our APIs already, and you can go to those products and bring in those services and plug in those additional pieces just off the shelf. So that's available today for those sort of schools that don't have the capability. I think the second really interesting point was something that Miles brought up before, was around AI and what this means to the development and usage. And what it's basically sort of saying now is that if we build MCP services, we can potentially make anyone a tool, an API user through an AI chat interface. And I think that's a really great way to democratize the use of APIs. Obviously, there's a whole lot of security and privacy issues in that space, but I think that will also see the democratization of APIs, so that, as Miles was sort of saying, we can mix and match. If you just have an idea, you want to try something, I want to see what this data from this system and this data from that system look like together in one place. You could ask an AI chatbot to synthesize that information for you and do those calls. I think that's going to really change the ability for people to access these APIs in the future.
I think even in some of those little things, as I say, we're quite early on our journey with this stuff, but have tinkered with many things over large and small over many years. Even in the things that we're doing, there are some more low-code things. So I mentioned we use a tool called Wakato. There's a really great open source and sort of and cloud platform called N8N that we're tinkering with, again playing with right now. There's tools that you can be using, like the consumer tools in that space are like Zapier. You might have sort of seen or played with. It might take a thing from here and go and plug it in over there, where it's low code or no code, but because it's a well-documented REST API on the Schoolbox end, a lot of off-the-shelf tools, and we both schools had examples of this, using an off-the-shelf tool that can talk to that API and do standard things doesn't require a software engineer. It requires somebody who's system analyst. That's right, and who's going to build a spec, write to that, work with it, get some advice perhaps if you need to, but maybe it's often a drag and drop workflow planner to say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take this data from here, and then loop through each instance of that, and then go and put something over there. There's those sorts of things, but it's also exactly the same thing, that you could be the same interface, that when you need to reach for it, you could be, and you've got the resources of a software engineer, you can be writing code to do that, and then all the usual good practices around that apply. And I think we're both examples of, and mentioned, building reusable components of things. Yep.
We've got one more. I think last question before we wrap up.
James, you mentioned the other day in your speech and stuff like that, this marketplace, and I've had some chats with some other staff around this. Could some of this code and stuff like that schools are developing in-house be added to this marketplace as a community-driven kind of thing, that other schools who might not have these software engineers might be able to apply this software based on this?
Look, so the marketplace concept, I think, it already exists sort of, in a sense. We already have an ecosystem of vendors. They're out there in the hall. That's already our little marketplace out there. And, so I think that idea sort of does exist. And does it exist to the point where I think we'll get schools who are building their own stuff and then selling it to other schools? I don't think so, because I don't think schools are really in the business of software development. And I know I love that you guys are all tinkering, but you're not necessarily kitted out for proper software dev. You don't have all the practices and processes, and I don't think they would ever want to go into the situation of selling and supporting it to third parties. So I love the idea of a marketplace developing, and I think that there will be, and I do encourage, we often get students coming out of schools building apps and coming to us and pitching it. Miles, you said you've got hundreds of them coming to you. We get them all the time as well. They've built a little app that helped them at school, and they want to then pitch it to our schools, and we're really supportive of that. And we want to create a platform ultimately where that visibility comes about, where we can nurture and support those startups who are addressing unique problems. And I think that's a really great part of APIs as well. It does create that sort of marketplace ecosystem in the long run.
Beautiful. Okay, so just to wrap up, if you haven't explored our APIs already, they're clearly published via our api.schoolbox.com.au. So the documentation is found there, so please explore that, review it. If there's anything missing there, that's the next part of this, is how we requesting feature requests. We want to know what you're trying to do. If there's endpoints that are, there was already a couple of sneaky feature requests in this presentation today, but we do actively want to know as a development team if there's anything that's missing, so we can add it to our backlog and our roadmap to essentially enable you to achieve your goals. So that's all we have time for today. Can I please ask everyone to thank our presenters today? And they've, well, not to throw them under the bus, but they are open to you asking them to demonstrate those workflows in the flesh. So if you'd like to see them, then you can bail them up at lunchtime or another time. So thank you everyone for attending.